Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. Today is the first day of summer, and tomorrow we are getting our first heat wave of the season. Now here in Connecticut, I'm not sure if a heat wave is actually defined the same way around the country or around the world. Here in Connecticut, we define a heat wave as 3 days in a row with a high above 90 degrees. I know for some parts of the country that's very normal, and every day in your summer is probably over 90 degrees. So I'm not sure if a heat wave is defined the same way everywhere, as I said, but that weather means that it is definitely not just summer according to the calendar, but summer according to the weather. And that means it is time to reset this Greenstalk for summer. Now, this planter here, this tower planter, I originally had this all planted out with lettuce and other leafy greens, which was great for the spring and the cooler weather. But now that we're getting a heat wave, those greens were not going to be happy. So I went through this Greenstalk and I harvested all of the greens that were in harvestable condition. A lot of them had actually already started to bolt, so those I just pulled out and will be giving to the chickens. I did leave a couple plants here at the top that I'm hoping to save seeds from. So this is an Asian green, which I'm not sure how to pronounce. I'll put the name up on the screen, but you can see that this is flowering. So this is bolted, which means that the flavor is bitter and it wouldn't really be good to eat anymore. But I am running low on seeds of this variety. I know this stem has a bend here, so I'm hoping that it will still make seeds. If not, I do have a few flowers at the top. So this I'm saving to collect seeds from. And here I have some tatsoi. This has not bolted yet, and this actually looks great. I have been harvesting this quite a bit, but I am hoping to be able to save seeds from this one too. So I'm gonna leave this here and let it bolt. You can see the other tiers, I've gone ahead and cleared out the greens, and we will be replanting with more heat tolerant plants today. So you can see this planter here has fairly shallow pockets, which means that for this type of planter, I need something that has a fairly small root system. Also, because it is mid to late June, today is June 21st, we here in Connecticut do not have a really long growing season, which means I'm not going to plant something here that has a really long maturity date. So I'm looking for things with fairly small root systems and things that mature quickly. So I'm going to fill this primarily with bush beans. I have a variety of different seeds here, and I will be filling in some pockets with some basil seeds as well. Both of those plants grow really quickly. Both of them have small root systems. They should do great in here. I actually planted out a whole planter of this type with bush beans last summer, and it did great. So I am just going to go through my seed packets here and figure out exactly what types we're going to plant, and then we'll get planting. So I have lots of different bush varieties here. So I just have to decide. I think I'm going to do this planter in a mix. So I'll probably just pull out really everything that I feel like growing, and we'll just make it all work. So I have here 5 different varieties of bush beans, and I'm just going to kind of randomly space them out. So I have this jade green bush bean, which is, a fairly classic. They're a darker green and a little bit more slender than a lot of beans. It's really good, and this has a 55 days till maturity, so that's really good. I have this Blue Lake bush. This is another classic bush bean. This one says 50 to 65 days to maturity. We have Royal Burgundy bush bean because, of course, we need some color. You can see this is a beautiful purple color. This one says 60 days to maturity. We have the Maxabelle. This is a French filet bean, so this is kind of a fancier bean, a little bit more slender, and I have grown this in the past. It's really delicious. So 50 days to maturity there. This is some type of yellow. I think that's French bean. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but you can see the name right there. This one does not say a days to maturity on here, but I have grown this before and it's fairly quick. So you can see here we have a few different green varieties, a purple and a yellow. So we'll have lots of beautiful beans in here. So I think I'm going to do this primarily with beans, and there's 7 tiers in this tower here, and I think I'll put 1 basil per tier. So yeah, so let me just choose my basil varieties. So definitely want this red Reuben basil for a pop of color and variety. Spicy Glow basil is a classic that always does really well. Mammoth basil. And I think the classic sweet basil. So that's 4 varieties there. So today I'm going to be planting seeds directly in this Greenstalk as opposed to transplanting in started plants, which I have found it can be, I don't really want to say more challenging, but it takes a little more attention to really germinate seeds in a Greenstalk. So I do have these little seed covers that help with germination. I'm not going to bother using these for the bush beans because those get planted deeply enough that I don't think it's really an issue. Basil gets planted pretty shallowly, which means that the soil that the basil seeds are in is more likely to dry out more easily. So I'm going to use these just to help my basil really get started. This will kind of hold in a little bit of humidity, and I think it will help our basil to germinate a little more quickly and a little more evenly. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to plant one basil in each tier to start with and put these little caps on there as kind of a marker that'll make it easier when I plant my beans to keep track of what to plant where. So it's a Saturday morning here. I know Dan is doing some yard work that you can probably hear, and some of my neighbors are doing yard work as well. So there's going to be a little bit of background noise in the video. Normally, I try when I can to pause filming and wait for that to be done, but I think if I do that today, we're just never gonna get done. So hopefully you can bear with me and hopefully it's not too intense. So we have 7 tiers on this planter here, and I have 4 basil varieties. So I think what I'm gonna do is plant 2 of each, except I'll probably only plant 1 of the Spicy Glow basil. I do have quite a bit of Spicy Glow basil growing in other parts of my deck, and I find that while I do really like it for variety, the others have larger leaves, which I find easier to use. So we'll do 1 each of those. I'm sorry, we'll do 2 each of those, 1 of the Spicy Glow basil. So, little aside here, I had filmed the first half of this video and just realized that I had never plugged in my microphone cord. So if the audio was a little bit off in the beginning of this video, I apologize. This is real life, and I am not a tech expert, and you know, I'm just a home gardener sharing my garden with you. So I apologize if the audio was a little rough. Thank you so much for bearing with me. So in this top tier here, we're gonna start with sweet basil. You can see I've got 5 seeds here. So I'm just going to plant 5 seeds in this pocket because I have lots of extra basil seeds. I'm not sure how the germination will be, and I can always thin it out if I need to. I'll just space them out as much as I can. Now basil I think will actually germinate pretty well. Basil seeds are kind of interesting because when you first plant them and you first water them, you water the seeds in, the seeds actually have a coating that can absorb water and become kind of gelatinous. They're kind of weird looking. They get kind of white and gooey looking. They almost look like some sort of amphibian eggs or something like that. So because of that, because basil has that ability to absorb water that way, it does make it a little bit easier for those seeds to germinate as opposed to a lot of other seeds that would be more likely to dry out in the heat and high temperatures and lack of rain that we have coming up over the next few days. So one thing I do want to note about this Greenstalk, this specific tower planter has a watering system where the idea is that you water from the top and it evenly distributes water to all the pockets. I find that that works great once you have established plants. Because I'm starting from seed though, what I am going to do is go ahead and water each of the individual pockets when I first get it planted, and then I'll probably do that again over the next few days just to make sure it doesn't dry out while we have that heat wave. And then once we have plants established, I can just go ahead and water from the top, and in my experience that works really well. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of slip this cover on. A little bit tricky to do with one hand, but just to mark that that's where I have basil planted. So here we're going to leave this tatsoi, and then here we'll leave this, and then I will plant 3 bush beans around the top. So with these bush beans, I'm kind of low on some of the seed varieties. Normally I would probably plant 2 seeds per pocket. I'm just going to go ahead and at least with these varieties here, just plant 1 per pocket. So I'm going to put 1 of each of these in the top. So see these Maxibel seeds here? I don't know how well you can see them, but they're speckled. They're really cool looking. So we'll take 1 of those. And then I'll put 1 of the Royal Burgundy and 1 of the Jade on the top row. So I just planted all these seeds according to the package directions. The bush beans say to plant about 1/2 inch deep. Basil, I just usually barely scratch the surface and just kind of tuck the dirt in over the seed once I plant it. So I'm just going to go through, get this whole Greenstalk planted, and I'll meet you back here. So I've got this Greenstalk all planted out with basil and bush beans, and I'm going to be honest, I might have lost track a couple times of which pocket I was planting in or which tier I was planting in. So we'll have to wait and see when it germinates. I may have double in some pockets and none in the others, but we'll find out together if that happens. So I'm just going to go ahead and water this in. Now, as I said, I'm going to go ahead and water each pocket individually, and once I've done that, I'm going to water using the actual watering system too. I want to make double sure that all of these seeds get even the surface of the soil moist so that they can have the best chance of germination possible. Now, because it is supposed to be so hot over the next few days, I do expect that these seeds will probably germinate really quickly. Most seeds, at least seeds for heat-loving plants, will germinate pretty quickly when temperatures are really hot and when the soil temperature gets really warm, as long as you make sure that they don't dry out. So I am going to have to come out here every day and water this planter during the heat wave. I may possibly even water the surface of the pockets twice a day, just because it is supposed to be really hot, quite a bit hotter than it has been yet this year. And because the seeds are right in the surface, especially the basil, I have to make sure that the surface doesn't dry out if I want them to be able to germinate. So I'm really excited about resetting this planter for summer. I will miss having those delicious salad greens right on my deck, but this time of year, they wouldn't be long for this world anyway. So it's time to switch over to heat-loving plants and summer crops. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today as we planted out this planter in summer crops. I'm really excited for harvesting lots of delicious beans and basil from this tower as the season goes on. So I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.